Morning, everybody. Shortly after 9, it's time for our special meeting. I haven't managed to lose it, which I just did, unfortunately. So the purpose of the meeting today is to do a first look at the first draft of the strategic plan proposal. Feel free, remember the protocols today and so on, and there'll be a public forum issue or item later on, so they can chime in. Anyway, to begin with, approval of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Hudel, second by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved that council approves the agenda dated January 8th, 2024 as circulated.
Comments? In favor? That motion is carried. Are there any disclosures to pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none. Presentations. We have Steve Lichty from Capital Park Consulting with us. We have retained their services to create this, put all the information together and come up with a strategic plan for our township. So, how do you guys want to do this? Steve, do you want to start with a presentation or what? So technology challenges first thing.
There you go. The other side. Well, first of all, belated Happy New Year to everybody. And now that we figured out the technology, I thought maybe we could just walk through the plan, sort of page by page, get anybody's comments or suggestions, criticisms. If you recall, the last time we met, the mayor had asked if you were going to get a chance to revisit some of the vision statement, the mission statement, and this is the chance to revisit it. One thing I would like to make note of is you are required as a municipality to have your documents accessible under the AOTA guidelines. And so the plan has been set up so that it will be. Our graphic artist has not yet entered the script. Like when you look at all of the pictures or the graphics, you need to enter into a field that most of us do not see, but which would read out what that picture or what that graphic actually says. So that's been established. It just hasn't been entered in case we change some of the positioning of some of the graphics or the photos. So if it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, just go through page by page, starting with the cover.
Okay, sure.
Anyone, any concerns about the cover? Like as a canoeist, I don't think that kayak is going to make it up that waterfall, but that's just me.
Do we have options?
In case anybody asks, is that Ragged Chutes?
Sorry?
In case anybody asks, is that Ragged Chutes on the Mississippi River, or do you not know?
I know because we were given all that information, but I forget what it is.
We've got a whack of pictures, right?
It is from our photo database, but I actually don't know where it is, but I will find out.
It looks like Ragged Chutes.
Just to confirm, every picture in this document is in North Frontenac, right? It isn't taken from somewhere else.
Any pictures that I provided are in North Frontenac, yes.
We did not use any photos that were not provided by.
Thank you, because that's not exactly what certain lady said. So we got it. All right. Okay, so everybody's happy with the first page, the cover page? All right. The message from the mayor. Roy?
Okay, so if we're gonna go through this page by page, I don't know how you want to do this because there's some certain things that I caught in here. Like I have 5 pages of grammar errors. So do you want me to just give those to you, or are we gonna go through every part of this?
Well, hang on. Grammar errors are just fundamental stuff, basics. So I'm kind of thinking that should just be handed to them at the end.
That's fine.
I think we should be focusing on the ideas here and the objectives of the goal.
Yeah, I don't want to bore everybody with 5 pages of errors, but they are in there and they need to be fixed before this becomes public. So
Agreed.
I can, if someone could send me an edited version of this, then I could, an editable version, I can put my suggestions of Mr. Mayor.
Would you be an arts major?
I may have had a little bit of grammar in my past. Yeah.
We'll see to it that we send you something like the content in an editable version.
Okay, that's good, because we don't need to go through everything here unless you guys want to learn grammar. But anyway. The only thing I have with this one is I don't like the picture of the mayor. I think that picture up there on the wall is much better. It looks like it's photo clipped in there because it has, you know, the North Frontenac behind there. It doesn't look professional. That one up there looks professional. So that's what I would suggest.
I never thought of that. Thank you. Because I know this would be taken the original pictures, right? And then there were the more professional ones that were taken. So can we change this one out for that one?
I would suggest going to a professional photographer for 200. Well, even better than that one, but a professional photographer is worth the money.
Right.
Are we stuck on having the photos in there? Can we remove them altogether? You want yours on? I'd be happy taking mine out of there.
All right.
Bad hair day.
I really don't have that problem. You know, that could have went unsaid. Could have. I have no issue with taking the picture out.
I'd like to say it.
Okay. Then change the picture out for that one. Let's see what it looks like.
I think we should have a picture of you in there,
Thank you.
but if you want to change it, that's fine.
Well, the trouble with pictures is when you come, you get elected, you come, we're gonna take your picture, you have no idea what to expect. And you just sort of show up and you think you're half ready to go, but then again,
Well, Mr. Mayor, it doesn't come with a number under it, so you're lucky.
yeah, okay. All right, so the pictures stay, but we'll change it out for that one. Okay? Is there anything else with this message?
Just a question on the signature.
That's not mine.
Well, that's not actually the signature, but Jerry Lichty, Mayor, North Frontenac Township. Is it not Township of North Frontenac? Well, I mean, that's how it is everywhere.
Yeah, except on our website.
Really?
You wanna access the website, it's North Frontenac Township. But that's okay. I don't have an issue with it either way.
Well, I think it should be consistent.
Okay. Yeah. And that's not my signature, so we'll change that too. No. And somebody did a much better job than my scroll.
I think it's computer generated.
Was it?
Of course, we're all wondering now, when you were first elected, did you have a full head of hair?
It's gonna be a long morning. It might get longer. And we're not paying any more to keep you here longer. So, message from the CAO. Comments. Counselor Hoodle.
Yeah, it shouldn't be CAO. It should be Chief Administrative Officer. We should have an acronym there. Again, the picture is the same thing. If it looks like a clip art in there with the background, it should be done like the mayor's picture with some proper background. North Frontenac Township, same thing. Township of North Frontenac.
Yeah, it's at the bottom.
Yeah, there's some repetition in some of the paragraphs that I noticed. Maybe just look at that.
Anybody else? I went through this. Mine's already been rewritten. And I like it, so I'm happy with it. There was a question whether the word fundamental should come out or not, and I thought about it. we'll leave it in. But this one here, I was pleased to see it. And I already talked to Corey. I just think it's too long and there's some repetition in it. I think it's generally it's good. For instance, that entire second paragraph, this is just my opinion. And the one thing you got to be careful of is everybody writes differently and everybody has a different opinion of what they put on paper. But if it was me, I would drop that entire second paragraph and the first sentence of the third paragraph. And on the fourth paragraph, serving as the guiding framework, we endeavor to enhance whatever, I take that out. The other thing is outlines key priorities across 4 crucial areas. When you add that 4 crucial areas, there's nothing defining what those areas are. Do we need that? Those are just my thoughts. But Corey, you know, you want to look at this? You happy with the way it is? You know. Anybody else?
I think there's some value in exposing the personality of the writer in each case.
Well, there is that.
And this says something about Corey and that says something about you. And too slick is too slick. We're not a slick township. We're a rural community with a whole bunch of self-pride, and that comes out. Well, even the photographs, I'm gonna go back on what I said. These are kind of silly photographs, but they show something. They show that we don't go out and create slick everything. And that's who we are.
I agree with what John is saying. Like when our residents read this, they're reading the intent and the expression of the person's picture there. And that tells them what the real person thinks. Whereas if we start imposing our opinions in what they say, it kind of distorts the whole thing.
I agree, and that's what I was saying about everybody writes and reads a little bit differently than everybody else. My only thought was when I read the CAO's message, I got lost in it. And so I'm thinking if it could be shorter, that'd be great. And Corey already talked about it. I just asked him if he'd look at it again, so I don't know what he'll come back with. The vision, mission, and values. Let's do the vision and the mission. Any comments?
I don't really see, I don't have a huge objection, but I don't really see how Four Seasons More Reasons aligns with the next 2 lines.
We added that because we wanted to make sure that we covered our community and the environment. And we originally started with that 4 Seasons More Reasons. And then we added that.
Four Seasons More Reasons is a tagline. It's not really a vision.
Now, the thought behind it was different. And people may remember that more than just what is typical of these things. Right?
So when you go down to values, I would like to make that core values. Just typically what I see.
You want values to be core values?
I think so.
I think so. And this is where the watermark is in behind, because on the computer screen, you can read some of them. But honestly, you know, I can see a little bit on this printout, but I couldn't read them. So if they're supposed to be there, Steve, they just aren't. You can't read them on the computer.
Okay. And then the other thing is when I look at the values like honesty and all that, like, do we need those definitions or those 1-line points underneath it? Because the core values are what they are. Everybody, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I have first. What does everybody else think? Fred, what do you think about this? What do you think about the values? Stephanie, your opinion?
So I like the idea of changing that values to core values. I think all the stuff underneath it's too wordy. There's too many words. I don't think we have to explain what honesty means. I'm kind of weirded out by strong ethics because our like ethics are ethics. Like, why do we have to say they're strong ethics? Aren't they? Isn't that an assumption? I don't like, and that third one, sorry, the fourth one, something attitude. What is that? What does that say? Positive attitude?
Yeah, I couldn't read it.
No, it's not. Some of these things are not values. And there's way too many words in there and people are gonna get lost in that. And sorry to backtrack a little bit, but I agree about the 4 seasons, more reasons. And maybe I agreed with this before, but I don't think that needs to be there. I think the vision has to be something really simple and what's below that explains our vision. I think John's right. The 4 seasons, more reasons it's a tagline. Take it out. It can go somewhere else. But the core values, there's too many words there.
Okay, we'll do the core value and we'll go back and discuss the actual vision. Okay? But let's go and let's do the core values. We would agree that values becomes core values. Fred?
Yeah, I think it's a little wordy too. I don't like the design of it with the tags coming down with just a few words in each one. I think that can be changed. And also it's transparent, or you could see the background, and the attitude is like, I can hardly even read that.
That's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Vern?
Well, I agree in principle to what everyone's suggesting. I think it's needless words.
John?
Can I ask Steve, where did you get these 5? Were they from the community or from an earlier version?
Sorry. This came from the previous version of your strategic plan. I think when we met, we wordsmithed a couple of points, but it's very close to what you had before.
Thought so.
That doesn't mean it can't be made simpler, and often simpler is better.
When I looked at it, and I got this by reading Corey's message. First of all, that honesty, truthfulness, sincerity, frankness, that just didn't sit well with me at all. There is nothing about being financially prudent, nothing about being inclusive, and nothing about being forward thinking. But that is in Corey's message. So I thought if we're going to keep this approach, we should be transferring those points into here. There's just something about saying, oh, we're truthful. It's like, well, does that mean you're not sometimes or others aren't? You know, you can apply that to any one of these, but that just truthfulness, sincerity, and frankness, I don't know. I think you're catching it already. You got approachable and you got receptive. I think they're the same thing. So if you leave this type of graphic, I'd like to edit some of those words. John, then Roy.
Yeah, what you just said makes me realize that this set of values is extremely conservative. It emphasizes the status quo. It's not forward thinking. And I think that's where we need to be. The world is changing and so on and so on.
Agree. Roy?
Yeah, just a sort of a general rule of thumb when you're looking at core values, it should align with your mission statement. So some of those words in the mission statement should be in your core values or vice versa, right? They should be interconnected.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Steve?
Just a bit of information. Roughly half of our clients choose not to put core values in their strategic plan. For a lot of the reasons what you're discussing now, that they tend to be motherhood, or they don't really say anything, or they don't change with the times. So what, I'm not suggesting you remove them, but it is an option that you could consider.
I don't have any comments at this time. Do any members of staff have anything you'd like to chime in with this? It's offered by the mayor. I mean, I agree with what you're saying too. I mean, hopefully people would expect our core values to be our core values, right? And I like the forward thinking. I like there was one other one that you had there as well. Yes,
And inclusive.
yes. So I think they're all, I think those are all important as well. So if we're gonna do that, those are at least wording that we should be adding to that. And would you want to just do the headings and get rid of the underneath and just add those three, you know what I mean? Just our core values and then the honesty, strong ethics, respect, teamwork, positive attitude, plus the three you just mentioned and leave it at that? Or would you want to just, it's up to you guys, whatever you want.
Personally, I'd like to delete honesty altogether. I mean, if we're not honest, we shouldn't, well, you know, we're honest. So core values is, do we want to label it in or out? Going back to what Steve suggested, maybe not.
I would like to leave it in.
Okay, Fred?
I was just looking at the bottom one on the right and that doesn't have to be there. I don't see any value in it. In its operations, volunteers, businesses, residents, you know.
Can we, is a suggestion, can we take, based on what you're thinking about, can we take 5 or 6 of these and actually just make them the core values instead of having 10 or 12? Stephanie?
Yeah, like I think they should stay in there, but to your point, if we had 4 or 5, it was something simple, one line, it was more, it's not something that's like, it can't be, it can't sound like it's a day-to-day thing. It has to be something that overall, for the long term, these are the core values of the township. You sound like the type of things that like are expected day to day, right? You're respectful to one another. We interact with residents and businesses, the staff are approachable, like this is the day to day stuff.
Can we take these down to just 5 strong ethics or strong core values? Would we be good with that? 4 or 5? You know, if you looked at inclusive, financially prudent, forward thinking.
One thing you have to be
And accountable.
careful of, Jerry, is to not mix verbs and nouns. Inclusive is a verb, respect is a noun. They
You're
should
right.
all be nouns.
Correct.
It's just inclusivity.
So just so you know, in high school, they had these Sato tests. And I finished on math, I finished at 98th percent. English, 62.
That's,
So there you go.
that's why Roy and I are here.
So,
Teamwork. That's why teamwork.
so John's 100% correct, right? The inclusivity, that's sincerity, transparency, progressiveness, those types of things.
Okay. All right. Let's go back and do those again. Stephanie, what have you got?
Sincerity, transparency, inclusivity, progressiveness.
That's 3, another one.
What does sincerity mean?
I don't like it.
I don't like sincerity.
Transparent, progressive, how about accountable?
How about efficiency? Take out sincerity.
I like forward thinking.
That's your progressive, that
Is
works.
that a noun phrase?
Yeah, if you go, progress means you've done something, you've gone somewhere. Doesn't always mean that you went in the right direction. You can have negative progress.
How about forward thinking?
That works. Can you live with forward thinking?
Sure.
Okay, just somehow. Vern?
Well, I think accountability should come out because that's decided at election time.
Oh, yeah. All right, Vern, give me your 4, or give us your 4. Actually, we'll go to. Roy, you ready to do this? No. Okay. Okay, so once again, Stephanie, you've got forward thinking, transparency, transparent. No, well, let's put it in for now and we take it out. How about approachable? Which is a, it's not a word. No,
I'd like to see environmental stewardship.
Okay.
It's written in the, goes back to the mission.
We should try not to repeat anything that's in Corey's message because
Well-
then it's just a repeat. The whole thing's one repeat after another.
sorry, preserving, this is the paragraph I thought we didn't need, but Corey will make that decision. Preserving and enhancing our natural environment while fostering a vibrant, prosperous and healthy township. So you gotta be careful, you know. Well, so I've got 5 of them written down. I've got forward thinking, transparency, inclusivity, efficient, environmental stewardship.
So maybe sustainable instead of efficient.
Forward thinking. Okay, transparent. Inclusivity. Okay, sustainable. Verb. Environmental stewardship. Yeah. Okay. Fern,
Well, when you mentioned forward thinking, my impression of that is policies when you're thinking outside the box instead of the norms. And I don't think we think enough out of the box to even include that.
you know what? I'm gonna look to you. I agree with you, and I'm gonna look to you to make sure we do that. I agree with you 100%.
My experience is when you think out of the box, you get shot down because it's expensive.
I used to have a boss that said, I want you on the leading edge, just not on the bleeding edge. So that's, that's what I look at.
So
Stephanie.
if we're not thinking outside of the box and we've all been sitting here for a year, then it needs to be in there. So we don't spend the next 4 years not thinking outside the box.
Why we're doing a sustainability, that's why we're doing a strategic plan, so we can think outside of the box according to the plan.
All right, so. Do we go, are we entitled to another draft, Steve?
You're entitled to as many drafts as you like.
Okay. Can we go with those 5 and then rethink them when we come back? Or revisit this when we come back? Okay, so let's go. 5R, forward thinking. I mean, come on, we have electronic elections, whatever else and so on. A lot of places don't have that. Transparency. Now if that comes in now. Inclusivity. I guess sustainable would be sustainable operations, wouldn't it? Okay, and environmental stewardship.
What's the difference between sustainability and environmental stewardship?
Yes. Depends. Environmental sustainable, financial sustainable.
Yeah. Maybe sustainable should be replaced by financial accountability. One word, okay.
What do you mean by environmental?
I mean, balancing development against basically destruction of the natural environment. That's what I mean.
And forward thinking, if you look at another word, is progressive.
All right. So. we've delete forward thinking, we're at progressive. Transparent. Inclusive. I'm doing all nouns up there. Okay. Environmental, that's 2 words. Environmental stewardship. Yeah. And we were And we have sustainable. Which, what does that mean to us? Does that mean that our operations are sustainable? Accountable like that. If we took sustainable and took that out and put accountable in, and then all we have is environmental stewardship. We really, whether it's two words or not, we really need that in there because it's in our mission and it's in our vision statement.
I don't think, I like environmental stewardship. It says it's exactly, this, the point of this is that people can read this and know what it means without interpreting it. And that is exactly what that is.
We can't wordsmith this one into fits into this particular bracket.
So, good idea, now just to have this five, have little sub words.
Yeah.
And all the.
And that's why we changed it to core values as opposed to one of the reasons we changed it from values to core values. Dave?
I agree with the deputy mayor. It's our job to make sure we get these all in the same structure. Earlier in the conversation, we discussed fiscally prudent. Has that been dropped by the wayside or has it just been overlooked now? Is accountability? Okay. And just a general comment, because you were concerned about having some duplication between the message from the CAO and the core values. Your core values should last significantly longer than the strategic plan. That you usually don't change those every strategic plan, but as you've noticed, you want to change them now from your previous ones. But if you're worried about duplication, I think what you need to do is change the CAO's message rather than the core values. Get the core values exactly the way you want them.
But the CAO's message and the mayor's message, as we talked earlier, are supposed to be personal, right? Within reason. So, okay, let's go back to the visions. Sorry, Roy.
In either of your messages, you don't have to list out the value. You can mention like following our core values. You know what I mean? You don't have to actually mention each core value.
That's right. Just, all right. Let's go back to the vision statement. When we did this, it was way back in October, November. And we all thought that 4 Seasons More Reasons was great. And it was a tagline. And then we changed it by empowering our community, protecting our environment. And who was the first one? Stephanie just suggested we just use the last 2 lines. Who was the other individual? You, John. What do you think about this? Taking out 4 Seasons More Reasons and using that as a tagline somewhere else and leaving our vision statement as empowering our community, protecting our environment.
Well, it is already used as a tagline on the signs on the highway. I don't know where, is it on the website? I think it is. Yeah, it's been seen by many in many places.
And your point is?
Doesn't need to be here.
Okay. Fred, what do you like?
I think it should be in the document for season more reading.
But should it be as
And remain
part of the
it.
vision statement?
I don't mind it being there and there in the vision statement, but like you say, it's a tagline.
Should we put it on that somehow? Yeah, that would look really good.
Front page, yeah.
Okay, so the vision statement, let's do a show of hands. Is everybody good with empowering our community, protecting our environment? That's the way it is. Good decision. Yes, Corey.
Did you want that added to the first page, the 4 Seasons More Reasons?
It's just,
Yeah.
That's a good idea, I think. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
I would like to see, trying to build the future or something like that in there.
That's called empowering our community.
Also,
I'd like to see progressive.
Okay,
See,
but
it's-
but there's the vision, a mission, and then there's your core values. So we've got to catch it somewhere, and we've done that.
It's in core values now, isn't it?
Yep. Right, Steve, you got, it's gonna go in there, right, as a core value, progressive? Yeah. 'Cause you're right, this stuff down, so.
Well, I think we got a mixture right now of nouns, verbs and adjectives, but we'll straighten it out.
That's 62%. Okay. All right, so then we get to this, our strategic priority sheet. Your comments. And this is probably one of the most important sheets we've got.
Priorities is spelled wrong in the title.
Or. Which is IES.
That is embarrassing.
I would have got that one right. But some of the other stuff, I don't think so.
We have to be consistent when we're talking about mission visions throughout the document. Sometimes it's capitalized, sometimes it's not capitalized. So when you review the document, you either make them all capitalized or you don't.
Okay. Okay. So does anybody have any issues with the 4 strategic priorities?
Is it a problem that we've used exact same wording, environmental stewardship, that we did under core values? Is that a problem or not? That was one of the 5 core values.
What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I think it is a bit of a problem. Well, it's the duplication, but I think you could come up with a different word for the priority.
Here,
Yeah. I think at one point it was resiliency or I know we've used different words from time to time.
okay, we go back to the other sheet. What do you have written as the core values that you're gonna put in here?
I have progressive, inclusive, transparent, environmental stewardship, and accountable.
Could we change environmental stewardship to sustainable? Or sustainability? Yeah. And then leave it here as environmental, because this is important. Yeah.
Personally, I like sustainable because it is ambiguous, whether it's the environment or financial or basically everything, which I think the ambiguity is a strength.
So, sorry, can I, under the strategic priorities? Maybe somebody already said this, but it's a like vibrant and prosperous community and then economic prosperity. Kind of, I don't like that. It's the same word used twice. So we should probably take it out of vibrant and prosperous community. And just put vibrant community.
What do you think? Are you okay with taking prosperous out of the community?
Yeah, but economic prosperity, just exactly what do we do to ensure that above just our normal operations?
We try to encourage small business.
I think
We
that's,
look for grants.
I think your question is what this is all about. Okay,
Even the word inclusive instead of prosperous would be a little better, I think. Vibrant and inclusive community. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of people in this community, very, very different. And we try to include them all and form a community.
we do. Okay. So what do you think, Roy?
Right, Roy?
I like what Stephanie said about the prosperity and prosperous. I think that's good. Everything else here, definitely keep environmental stewardship in. We got the spelling mistake. Just one little other thing. I know it's small, but in my mind, it's big. Throughout the document, we call it mission and vision, or vision and mission. So when you're going through the document, can you please have the same order all the way through? This vibrant community. And then economic prosperity at the second.
Red, what do you think?
I like the vibrant, inclusive community.
Okay. Okay. All right. Does anybody object to that? Okay, it's now vibrant, inclusive community.
So based on the previous discussions, are we going to take inclusive out of our core values then?
Throw another word in there. What about thriving?
But that's vibrant. That's just an adjective or a, what do you call it, synonym? Can we just go with vibrant community?
As long as we have inclusive somewhere, because we talked about it before for applying for grants, it needs to be in here somewhere.
Yeah. Good point. Is it, okay, having said that, is it better to take it out of the core value and put it in here? What did they look at, Corey? Did they look at core values? I guess they would.
Actually, I think that's a good suggestion, I think, because again, when you're writing these down, especially if we're going to be doing things for accessibility, stuff like that coming up, hopefully that is part of that. Yeah, it's part of our strategic priorities. So I think that if we could squeeze that in there somewhere, that would be awesome. Yeah, be very helpful.
So then I'm okay with putting inclusive in the priorities and just making another word in core.
Equality or whatever on the other side. Yeah.
Personally, I don't see a problem with repeating a word between core values and strategic priorities.
Okay, so we've got vibrant, inclusive community, and inclusive community, economic prosperity, sustainable core services. Do we want the word core in there, or is it just sustainable services? Or is that going to cause us a problem?
It all depends on if people understand the term core services.
You think of Roy or Jerry, when you see the word core, what exact services do you think of?
I'm looking at what we do every day. We look at
Yeah.
roads, we look at, tax base, distributing information, that sort of stuff.
Keeping community centers open.
Yes, definitely.
Because some people would view core services as fire and healthcare.
Don't forget roads, got to get somewhere.
All,
Right.
all the big jobs that the township has to make it run would be core services and include waste sites, fire department, all of that.
I kind of hesitated when I mentioned it, but whether I should or not. I started a conversation. Maybe I don't want to start, I shouldn't have started. But from time to time, yes, from time to time, we offer services, but they may be on a short-term basis. Like right now, we're pumping sewage systems on a volunteer basis. That hasn't really made it to our core services, and we may or may not decide to keep doing that. But we still have to operate sewage systems, still have to do the roads, and all the other good stuff, parklands, whatever, and so on. So maybe core should stay there. After I listened to what some of you said.
I think maybe core should be in there because it would distinguish it from services that might result from forward thinking.
So if I went on,
Like new stuff.
if I went on the township website, would I be able to look up sustainable core services?
Maybe be a bit of, I don't know.
Because if I was new to this township, I might want to know what that means. Do I get my septic pumped? Can I call? You know what I mean? Like we have to view this as what if I'm new, not I've lived here for 50 years. What if I was brand new to the township? What does that mean?
I look at this that way too, but I also look at this as our document. If this is going to lead us for the next 3 years. Kelly?
So I just thought might be worth is the asset management and the province guidelines. They talk about core service or core infrastructure, and they're specifically talking about roads, bridges, and things like that. So if we're looking at grants and we're doing sustainable core services, the province may look at that as being roads, bridges, opposed to all of the other services we offer. So just a thought.
Okay. What are your thoughts, folks? Was we going to leave this? Stephanie, does this course stay in or out?
Well, now that like Kelly's explained what it means in other places, I think it's actually more of a, we need to have more of a discussion, because if I didn't know that and I didn't know better, that's not how I would interpret sustainable core services. You're wishing I was late for this meeting now, eh?
No, I'm still working on that. Still working on the hair comment. No. What do you think, Fred?
I think the word core should stay in there.
Vern?
Yeah, I believe it should, but with the understanding to the public as to exactly what that means.
Well, you can go down to strategic actions if you want further definition.
Okay, so I guess this is to Corey and anybody else who's writing grant proposals. What do we include in our grant application? We write sustainable core services. Is there any additional explanation with that? Or do we run into the potential that we're going to be considered roads and bridges when we're looking at, you know, a new wayside or something?
There's definitely room to expand. I mean, sometimes you put in your mission, your vision, sometimes you put in your values. I mean, as long as it's in there somewhere, we can definitely expand and explain.
So by making an incorrect decision here, you'll be able to actually work around it. Hopefully.
I think whether it says core or not, it's still there, and still when you get down into strategic priorities, it explains what that means.
Okay. Roy?
Well, I understand the value of having certain words in here for applying for grants and that, so I would leave it as core services.
Core services it is.
And if you go on kind of further into the plan where it talks about sustainable core services, then it starts to talk about that continue to invest in municipal infrastructure as the strategic action and the enhanced township services. So we can, that really helps us to play with that wording whenever we need it for a grant application, because we can kind of get into that with the, so yeah, it's kind of covered in there, but just wanted to, once you kind of get further into the plan, then it shows you where that goes. But you may want to change that when you get there, who knows, right? But it's that's kind of the way we look at it.
So just a question, when we submit an application for a grant, do we include a copy of the strat plan?
Not always. Sometimes they ask for it, sometimes we include it, sometimes we don't. Just kind of depends on the grant and what our goal is.
All right. Does anybody have an issue with the term environmental stewardship? There is protocol here. Roy?
No, I do not.
I don't have an issue with the wording. I do have an issue with the color though. If you're gonna make one green, it probably should be environmental stewardship. So
You know what? An English major, I thought Fred was the art major.
Listen, I'm colorblind, so I'm well aware of AODA requirements, so, but that should be green.
Okay,
I agree. It should be green.
gray is closer to the color of money, you know, so.
There you go.
And
Okay.
that yellow for sustainable core services isn't the nicest either while we're on that topic.
What color would you prefer?
I'd make that red. I don't even like red.
Which one?
Sustainable core services.
I would leave it up to the, whoever you're deciding to come up with the proper colors, but just environmental stewardship should be green.
Agreed about the change to green. The all of the colors that you see here are actually taken out of the new branding guide that the county has produced, with one exception, and that is the yellow. And the graphic artist wanted to use red, and I said, try to stay away from red ink in a strat plan, but he'd be happy to change it to red.
Well, so you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but I've once been told that if you're colorblind, you will be colorblind to the color red first. That's why traffic lights are red, you know, so. I don't know. What do you think?
I'd have to see it, to see what it looks like. I can't tell you. There's so many shades of red, right?
If you put red in there, it's just gonna be right in your face. If you want to change it, fine. If not, we're not falling on our sword on it today.
Can I just suggest, I'll leave it with the graphic artist to pick what he thinks is gonna look best with the rest of the colors. One small point before we move on, should it be vibrant and inclusive community, or vibrant, comma, inclusive community?
Pardon, Steph? And? Roy?
Yeah, there's a new sort of grammar rule with commas and ands. I won't get into it, but I would say with and.
One of a court case in the States, and one of a court case in the States. So vibrant and prosperous community. Sorry, vibrant inclusive community. My apologies. Okay, so now we go into the individual priorities and we look at the strategic actions. I'd like to look at them first, and then on each action, then we'll look at the outcomes, okay? All right, so the first one is vibrant and inclusive community. Investigate opportunities for efficiency.
I would change the word investigate to determine.
How about identify? Provide support to community partners for healthcare, senior, and youth services.
The first strategic action does not refer to the title. Investigate efficiencies. Efficiencies, how do they relate to vibrant and inclusive communities? Efficiencies is about saving money and time. How does that make a vibrant community?
I think it related to the prosperous. By being efficient, you're spending your money on things that
It
you,
refers to prosperous, but prosperous
It's
is not
gone.
in there anymore. I would suggest we put the second item first. It does kind of relate to vibrancy and inclusivity a bit.
I think if you're gonna start moving that around, you should have promote a healthy lifestyle first. Because that includes everybody.
Yeah, maybe.
So you want 1, 2, and you want to leave identify opportunities for efficiencies in there? Or do we put it somewhere else? Tara? Hang on. Tara has the floor.
I think Stephanie's gonna say, what if we moved it over to economic prosperity? What she's gonna say.
So I have a question, Steve. Is there usually, how many actions are typically under one of these priorities?
We got 3, 2.
there's no real rule.
2.
You generally try to keep them fairly equal. 2 is the bare minimum, obviously, and if you get more than 5 or 6, it's getting pretty wordy.
So you got 3, 2, 2, 3.
So right now, if we take out, so we have promote a healthy lifestyle, provide support for community partners, identify opportunities for efficiencies. So identify, should we identify and implement opportunities for efficiencies? Or implement opportunities for efficiencies? Oh, we're working on that right now. So the very first one is investigate opportunities for efficiencies. Do we want to change it? Do we want to leave it in? What are your thoughts? Fred?
Sorry, I think that if we take these strategic actions and reverse them, the one on the bottom should be first, and then the second one could stay there, and the top one be third position.
Yes. But what do you think about the one you want to put third, which is now the first one on here, the original one? Investigate opportunities for efficiencies.
I think it should go to economic stuff.
Okay, do we just take it right out and leave two here? For now, anyway.
Can you think of a new action that would improve vibrancy and inclusivity? Something we don't do now?
Or you do something we do now that we can substantially improve?
I can't.
We could, because it ended up, I was thinking about development, that ends up being part of the economic version of the world.
I mean, you could come up with something completely new, like envisioning a local transportation service. That would, sorry? No, but it would possibly be an action that would increase inclusivity.
So. Yes, promote a healthy lifestyle, provide support to community partners for healthcare, seniors, and youth services. Okay, so we need something about being inclusive. Or we can just delete it, just have two. Kara,
What about something about culture or, so we've got like a lot of it, the health, but something about like culture and arts and things like.
well, that's good. Corey?
So was there anything identified, Steve, from our, we did all that consultation with the community. We really should be focusing on I think on our consultations that we've done. If we want to start adding stuff, it should be coming from or the input we received, I think, my thoughts, but.
One thing that you could include would be more events and festivals, which help to promote the culture. They help to attract tourists. It gives more things for the people who live here to do.
John?
I was actually hoping that this would be arranged a bit differently. I did want to hear from Steve. I know nothing about what you heard in public. I'd really appreciate a brief description of what you heard before we got into the details. Is it possible to take a breakdown and do that? Like, does anybody else think that's of value? Yes.
Sure.
Like, I'm Googling stuff while we're talking about inclusive. So an inclusive community is one in which people can be involved in its spaces, places, activities, and events, regardless of their age, age, ability, income, or ethnic background. If we need to, we should add something about that. It can't be that difficult to come up with something.
But it's under promote a healthy lifestyle, increased engagements by residents and visitors. Increase forces of season tourism, recreation. You notice I took the events one out. Provide safe, efficient, and enhanced recreational facilities, trails, and parks.
But even promote a healthy lifestyle, that's very vague.
It's a strategic action, that's why.
I find that very vague, but I know it's supposed to be, but. Sorry, I find that I'm not crazy about that, but I realize we're not onto that one yet.
Okay, what's the direction you guys, everybody would like? And then we'll, okay, Steve, you were gonna tell us, the questions on the floor is, can you give us a little bit of background as to what you learned when talking to our residents?
There was another document, a much longer document called the final report, which had put in all of the documentation from the interim reports, which included the results from the focus groups and the public meetings. Did that go out to council?
No, it didn't, because there were some changes that we're gonna have to make that align with everything here, right? So it will, but once it has to align with what we talk about today. So
Okay, so if we could take a break for a couple minutes, I'll find it and be able to report back on what I learned.
We're back in our meeting. Steve, floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll start with walking through what the 6 different focus groups told us. And I'll start with the business group. I'm doing them in alphabetical order. It was the most lively of the 6 groups. They must have enjoyed it because it was supposed to last an hour and they were here about an hour and 45 minutes. One of the things that they emphasized is that change is inevitable, and it's important that the township steer the change that's going to happen in the township rather than react to it. They want growth, but they're also concerned about the impact of growth. They gave a couple of examples of municipalities where they don't think it was handled particularly well, which I won't name now, but you can probably guess where they are. They think there's a need for more amenities, more business amenities. A lot of that would be commercial, things like stores and restaurants. And they want a business-friendly environment. I'll come back to that in a minute. Some of the support and resources they'd like to see is more opportunities for skill development that would typically come through some type of arrangement with a community college. More appreciation for volunteers, reducing red tape. And there was a difference of opinion on this. They all agreed that they want to have streamlined processes. The point that was made quite strongly was when a business comes to the community or to the township for approval for something, they don't want to be told the reasons why they can't do it. They want to be told what they need to do to get it approved. The difference of opinion was how well that is working right now. The one gentleman who thought that it actually is working fairly well said he wanted to put an addition onto his business. He designed it. And then he looked on the township website to see what he needed to do to be compliant and realized it wasn't going to comply. So he changed the design so that it would comply. And when he came, he got his approval in a matter of days. Now, others said they weren't aware that was on the website, and there were complaints about the township website being difficult to navigate. But the overall desire is to have things streamlined and accessible. It was common. The usual concerns about road maintenance, they recognize that's the biggest capital asset that the township has. Again, more comments about public information, even things like waste disposal practices are difficult for tourists and seasonal residents to find sometimes. They'd like to have more accommodation in the area, better signage, and they welcome the beginning of economic development initiatives that are occurring in the township. And they'd really like to find a way to attract and retain young adults and young families. A lot of that would be through recreation. The community hall groups, not as well attended. In fact, there was only one of the 4 that came. They'd like to see better promotion of township activities through the township website. Again, complaints about the website not being particularly easy to navigate. They also talked about newcomers who come here don't necessarily find it easy to figure out what groups they can volunteer for. So better information on that on the township website. They'd like to see better linkages across all of the community groups so that they can coordinate what they're doing, so they don't plan events for the same weekend or similar events. Connectivity challenges, which I think you're familiar with lack of internet in some parts of the township. Concerned about the lack of mental health and wellness resources for people who need those services. That there's not much available in the township, or if there is, they're hard to find. They saw the community halls as economic drivers, which is part of the overall theme that recreation leads to quality of life, which leads to people wanting to live here, people wanting to have businesses here. The Indigenous focus group was extremely positive. They believe that they're going to be receiving some type of settlement over their land claim in the next several years. They're looking for opportunities to invest that money in the township. They clearly would like it to be related to the environment, as they put it. There's a program, Lands Need Guardians, which is an Indigenous program. They would like to use that. It's partially educational, it's partially recreational. There's different things that it does. They'd like to see more tourism, but they want to see sustainable tourism. They also talked about things that extend beyond purely Indigenous issues. They'd like to see seniors housing, because that's a core value for the Indigenous communities. They'd like to see cultural exchanges. They'd like to see something done to help preserve their languages. They'd love to see community gardens. And the community gardens could include some of their traditional plants that they use for their medicines and for their other practices. And they'd like to see a chamber of commerce established to help promote some of these activities. They're hopeful that White Duck Provincial Park does go ahead. I'm not sure where that stands right now with the province. They also are hoping that the township can find a way to attract some of the almost 250,000 visitors that go to Bon Echo Park every year to come over to some of the facilities that you have here in North Frontenac. The Parents Council, they fully recognize how challenging it is to have schools in such a sparsely populated township. They did express their disappointment that when they applied to the township for $1,000 to rehabilitate the school kitchen, it was turned down on the belief that that should be a school board funding. They pointed out that that kitchen was actually paid for by, I believe, private donations in the township. And because it's such a small school, they're not getting a lot of support from the school board. So any support that they can get from the township will be very much appreciated. They're concerned about the lack of employment opportunities in the township for people who live here. They're worried about the lack of childcare spaces, which is common across all of Canada. They're concerned that some of the community events that they'd like to attend are held during the day. So the parents who are working are not able to attend. It'd be nice to have some that are outside of the usual business hours. And they are concerned about retaining youth, and but they emphasize they like the community spirit in North Frontenac and they want to maintain that. That should be a high priority. The North Frontenac Lake Association's focus group. We had representatives from 2 lake associations, Malcolm Arctic Lake and Palmerston Lake. Obviously, they're very concerned about environmental protection, and not just protecting the environment, but protecting the rural lifestyle. That they quite value the rural character of the community. They would like the township to show environmental leadership. In fact, they use the expression to achieve and sustain a best-in-class environmental protection framework. They would like to see an environmental stewardship working group formed, led by the township, with representatives from various associations in the community. There was discussion on the issue of the lake carrying capacity, and I was told that the province says that all of your lakes except one are below the maximum lake carrying capacity. They weren't convinced that's accurate. I don't know how you prove whether it is accurate or not, but it was an issue that came up and was discussed at considerable length. They'd also like to see some type of funding for the road associations that have private roads, which is something which it's tough doing the municipal roads. So I'm not sure how far you want to venture down the road for private roads, pun not intended. The lake associations, we actually had 2 focus groups. One was specifically for the North Frontenac Lake Association Alliance focus group. It was very similar to what we heard from the lake associations. Protecting the lakes is, I think it was put that the environment is the economy for this township. So you have to protect the environment. They went into more detail about the septic reinspection program. That's something which they support. I'm sure you're aware of that. They're also worried about the management of short-term rentals. That, and all that came up in other groups with issues of noise and nuisances. Here it came up in the context of preserving the environment. That with the short-term rentals, are the people going to be responsible with where they dump their waste, how they treat the lakes, that type of thing. Talked about the protection of the lakes and thought that there are challenges in accurately measuring the water quality. That the way that the phosphorus levels are tested is outdated. They're worried about shoreline erosion. They're worried about the proliferation of illegal docks and worried about the septic systems that are not inspected that are clearly illegal and are threatening the lakes. They'd like to see some of the public boat launches upgraded. That I think I heard that some are better than others. On the community partners, this wasn't a focus group. This was a survey that came back from the Rural Frontenac Community Services, who I will say they sent participants to quite a few of the various events that we had. They seem to be very engaged in what's happening. Most of what they said, I think you would probably know. They talked about the greatest strength of the community being the natural beauty and the rural character and the community events and the community spirit. They want you to keep focused on all of those things. When they're looking at the weaknesses, one of the challenges that you have as a rural community, it's a long distance to go anywhere. So if you need some significant medical service, you're traveling a long way. Major shopping expeditions, depending on what you're trying to buy, you need to travel a long way. They're worried about the number of seniors that are here that would like to age in place. So it's not just providing accommodation, but providing the health services that they're going to need. They're worried about the hidden poverty that isn't necessarily visible to everyone because you do have probably quite a bit of disparity in household incomes across the township. And the lack of suitable housing. And it's always difficult when you use the word affordable because some people think that that's rent geared to income or subsidized. And other times it means just that it's affordable for people who may be working but can't afford like a very expensive piece of property. They'd like to see some assistance for residents that are living in marginal conditions. They specifically talked about food insecurity for low-income residents. I don't know the statistics here, but well, Prince Edward County, which is generally considered to be fairly wealthy, I know that their school board did a survey and found that 35% of their students live in food insecure households. Food insecurity means not that they're short of food, but there's a risk they could be short of food in any given month. And that's probably a lot more common than most of us realize. They like the community centers. I think they do a lot to add to the quality of life in the community. They'd like to see more events and activities for residents. I talked about an essential services fair, just to get people aware of what is available and how to access it. Particularly interested in having support for children and youth to appeal to young families. And I think you're aware that they provide some of those services already. They thought the major issues that the township should be prepared to deal with is how are you going to maintain services with rising inflation? How are you going to address the environmental changes that are actually outside of our control? Wildfires, severe weather patterns, that type of thing. How do you ensure that residents have access to services, particularly health and emergency services? And how do you find, hire, and retain qualified personnel, not just for the municipality, but for businesses in the community? Their long-term vision for the township is they use the word thriving. Local communities are thriving. There are young and old residents, active use of community spaces, new homes being built, and people choosing to move and stay in North Frontenac. A range of services to meet all of their needs, and that the environment is celebrated, accessible, available to visitors to access, expressed through the arts, and promoted to attract tourism, but overall that it's protected. Received a number of emails that we have put verbatim into the report. And so we are not responsible for those spelling and grammar errors. We are responsible for the ones we make. One of the things that talked about, which I thought was interesting, is with forest fires and wildfires. Do you have areas that have discarded tires and that type of thing, which would be a significant health hazard? Or even more likely is boathouses tend to be holding places for used oil and all kinds of other hazardous materials that if there ever was a forest fire, there'd be an awful lot of that would go up in flames. So the suggestion that there be some type of program to encourage, maybe through the lake associations, to encourage people to clean out their boathouses and their garages and get rid of those materials. And then the township could assist by providing a depot for drop off. That was it from the focus groups and the town hall meetings. The public meetings, I'm not going to go through those. They were relatively poorly attended. Actually, they were poorly attended. There was some interesting comments, but most of it you've already heard because it all also came out in the focus groups.
Steve? Before we go on, just keep in mind that this meeting will end at 1 o'clock at the latest. Several of us have other appointments that we have to leave, so that's pushing it. 12:30 will be better, but 1 will be the latest, so. Anyway, so let's go back to this vibrant and inclusive community. We did agree that we would promote a healthy lifestyle would become the #1 strategic action. We would do them to provide support for community partners for healthcare, seniors, and youth services is #2. And #3, we were struggling with what that should be. So you've kind of heard, or you have heard now what the consultant has looked at or what the information they have. Whether you agree with everything was in there, there are some really good bullet points in there that we should pay attention to. So what do you think this third item should be?
I don't think we need a third item.
Anybody else? We can always add it, I guess, if we think about it later. For now. So let's just go with the 2 for now. Okay. So, promote a healthy lifestyle. I'm looking at the desired outcomes. Increased engagement by residents and visitors. Because it's an outcome, it has to be, and then it has occurred. So increased Four Seasons tourism, recreational opportunities should be increased. And then the last one, safe, efficient, and enhanced recreational facilities, trails and parks. And provided, key to provide has to be something else.
Provision of.
Yep. And then engage in the community through events. Maybe additional community or further or more community engagement through additional events or something. I don't know. I think that second line should be reworded a bit. Because this is, like I said, it's an outcome, so it's happened. And we're looking down the road 4 to 5 years. Engagement of the community through the specific events or additional events or whatever. You just want engagement of the community through events, I'd be happy with that. What do you think, Stephanie?
Well, I would agree with what you just said, because some of this is not, I feel like some of it's not worded correctly. But to be honest with you, I don't know what I would change. I'm not kind of stuck on this stuff, but I'm not sure how I would word it differently. It's not, it's all right. It doesn't like, there's no wow factor to it. I don't know. I'm not sure.
keep in mind that this is just draft one. There'll at least be one more draft of this. So we do have time to think and do changes that the number of changes should get smaller or you reduce the number as we go.
Did the desired outcomes, are they meant to be, just to remind me, my own sake, are they meant to be specific? Do you want these to be specific and measurable? Is that the point of them?
Ideally, they'll be measurable, although that's not always possible. You want enough specific, you want them to be specific enough that you actually know what you're supposed to do, but you also don't want to be things that you're just checking off a list, that it's too operational. So like increased engagement, I suppose you can measure that by attendance. So it's fairly vague, but it's also lets you know what you're trying to do.
Okay, so let's talk about that one for a second. So increased engagement by residents and visitors. So if we measure that by attendance at events, that's not the whole community. That's not the whole township, right? There are plenty of people who will never go to a township event. They won't drive to it. So how do we know that they're engaged and they're doing something for themselves to promote a healthy lifestyle?
I think attendance at events would just be one of the measurements. You can probably track how many people will come to your website. You can track the number of people who are involved in community organizations. You can track the number of people who come out to vote. There's lots of different ways to track that. And you're not going to get 100% of the people engaged, but you want to see an increase and an increase across all of those different measures.
See, because I guess maybe this is what I'm stuck on. So when I look at promote a healthy lifestyle, I'll be quite frank, the first thing that does not come to mind is community events. I understand the purpose of them. I would 100% agree that they're necessary. But for me, that's more of a social thing. And while I appreciate being social has something to do with your mental health, I get that all. I understand the whole picture. But when I look at promote a healthy lifestyle, the first thing that comes to my mind is not that. It's not the recreational opportunities. Right? Because you talked about things like food insecurity, lack of mental health, attracting young people to this area. Right? So maybe I feel like that's what I'm stuck on. I don't think the two things, I don't necessarily think our outcomes match our action.
Ed?
Yeah, just the first two on that, I sort of combined them. Provide healthy events for residents and visitors throughout the community.
Okay.
Just put them together.
You know, it's all in how each one of us looks at the various items here. We all look at it slightly different. So we've started Winterfest. We've got the second one coming up. We've done Summerfest. We do the Essential Services Fair. People enjoy going out to these, and we're looking for that to increase. And that's making these events available to, hang on, that's making these events available to our electorate. We could do I don't know what, I know we have pickleball courts in Cloyne. Do we have a pickleball tournament? Well, hang on, yes, that's exactly where this is going. And I know our manager of economic development and our community development and manager of economic service, I got that wrong, I apologize. They're younger, they have some great ideas. I'd like to see that develop. There's a bike trail in Lennoxton, Addington. And they got this little tagline and whatever, there's a picture on Facebook, there you go. We can do the very same thing. Looking at creating a campground or another campground. Whether we do it or someone else does it, it's all positive. It's just how we go about it. And all that contributes to bringing additional tourists, bringing additional money and promoting a healthier lifestyle. Because if you're scraping to try and find how am I going to feed my family tomorrow, your focus is not on having a good time, and that's bad. So. Can we just, if we left promote a healthy lifestyle, those desired outcomes for now, and went to the second one, provide support for community partners, we can come back and revisit this later on when we see all the major changes that are done. And now we're kind of wordsmithing and adding an item here or taking an item out. Is council good with this? John?
Before we leave, promote a healthy lifestyle. I'm having a little trouble. The first two items seem identical to me. Okay.
That's why I tried to put them together in one sentence.
Yeah,
Maybe the second one is how you measure the first one.
Are they supposed to be 4 unique outcomes?
No,
Then why do we have 4?
if you have just what the consultant put down. Look at that, right, Steve? There could be 2 there, there could be 5 there, there could be 3 there, whatever.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
and I
two of
think,
them-
I agree with Stephanie. I think they are very similar. They could be combined.
in order to address Stephanie's description of a measure of a healthy lifestyle, she's talking about a hidden part of this community that we're not aware of. So maybe we should put in something like awareness of income disparity in the community or something like that. And just being aware of it might lead eventually to dealing with it in some way.
Okay, Fred?
Just a quick comment. A lot of the community centers have exercise groups. And I don't see that mentioned in here that there's a lot of people that went and took special training for this. And that's what they've done.
Well, that would fall under some of this stuff, but John just hit the nail on the head with his comment. So there are a lot of people, I'm only speaking to my ward because that's the ward that I know. There are a lot of people in my ward that are not represented that would make use of this type of thing, either because they do not drive, they can't afford to go to something or pay for a class, or their age group is just left out. And sadly, and maybe not sadly, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on and people doing this type of work. And it's not even like, we don't even know about it. I see it all the time. There are groups that are looking after other groups of people. And it's not, and that's a great thing. But it shouldn't be it shouldn't be something that is so hard to find or so hard to see. I'm not explaining myself correctly, but this is the kind of stuff that, like, if this is for the township, if this is about what our township is going to do for its residents, then this is the kind of stuff that we need to put into this plan. Because otherwise, if I didn't know any better, I'd look at this and be like, oh, well, if I'm a tourist, this is for me, right? We don't have any tourists hardly in the winter. But we don't have enough people living here. We want to attract more young people. They need a job. So they can afford to buy a house. So like some of this stuff, I look at this and I think like, this is for a very select group of people. And there is huge economic disparity in this township, to John's point, and most of it goes unnoticed.
Roy? And then Vern.
So I understand where stuff she's coming from, so I'm gonna ask, what do you suggest putting in? I mean,
Well, to the mayor's point, maybe we come back at it afterwards because I'm not gonna take up your time discussing it now. I mean, I think if we all maybe gave it some thought outside of this meeting and came back with it.
Vern?
Well, I agree, like all these points are important, but I think we have to realize that as a small municipality, we can't be the be all and the end all to solve all these problems. So we're gonna have to be pretty reserved on what we actually consider we're capable of doing.
And we're going into the budget season. So if you look at what what's here and what everybody has talked about. If you say we want to increase engagement by residents and visitors. So how do we measure that? We measure that through, I don't know, maybe new businesses. We measure that through attendance at Winterfest, attendance at Summerfest. We promote the Backroads Studio Tour. How about attendance at the various halls, use of the halls? All that information is available. All we have to do is categorize it and say what we can do. And we have a website. Yes, it's a little convoluted at times, but it's still new. It will get better. So we can use that. So all this stuff plays into that one particular item. So, you know, and then increase four-season tourism, recreational opportunities. That's more of a commercial issue. As is the next one. You know, maybe it's promote safe, efficient, and enhance recreational facilities, trails, and parks. And we also need to, delving into the economic world, promote small businesses, youth involvement, that sort of stuff. Stephanie.
So Councillor Hudel and our deputy mayor may have already said this, but some of these are repetitive. I think John mentioned that. So, you know, the increased four-season tourism, recreational opportunities, like some of this stuff goes together already. So maybe we need to like take some of this out and add a couple things that have something to do with promoting a healthy lifestyle that is not a tourist or recreational opportunity, because there's way more to a healthy lifestyle than just that. And this reads like, you know, we keep talking about 4 seasons, more reasons, but this reads very much like May to October to me. And there's way more to promoting a healthy lifestyle than what we have here.
Okay, in the interest of getting this done and giving you guys a clearer thought here, may I suggest we look primarily at the strategic actions, and then each of us goes away and generates our own list of desired outcomes, and we submit them. Can we do this by email, or is that a council business plan, Corey or Sarah? Can we submit them to you and then you can roll them up?
Yep.
Okay,
Nope, yeah, just don't submit them to everybody, just each of you submit them independently to probably Corey.
Why can't we just talk about this for the next 15-20 minutes? I mean, Stephanie's on a roll. So
well,
I'd like to hear more from Stephanie.
I don't have an issue with that. I just want to get through these major strategic actions.
Yeah, I totally understand where Stephanie's coming from. I don't agree with everything she says, because I think there is some all year stuff in here. And remember, this is a strategic plan, not an action plan, right? So it's, you know, let staff decide later what the goal is. But I don't know, Mr. Mayor, I think we should continue talking. I think we're going to lose the momentum if we stop this now.
Okay. Vern, your thoughts?
I agree with what Roy was saying,
Okay.
because if we go away from it, everybody's mind is gonna go dull again.
Again. Okay, all right. Kelly?
Just listening to what Stephanie has to say, I think probably what we're looking at is maybe another action, and it's about the inclusivity. So what Stephanie's referring to is including all these other people. So we did talk about maybe needing another action that kind of looks at inclusivity, and I think that would bring together some of Stephanie's thoughts about those people that are not going to be attending events and things like that.
So I have a question for you, Steve. So we said like, work to promote youth employment or work to provide job opportunities and so on. Could that show up under more than one strategic priority?
Actually, those types of things often do. And I tend to agree with Kelly. I think you need a separate strategic action, which is going to focus more on some of the social dimensions that Stephanie's been talking about. And if there is a risk because you can't be all things to all people, But just like with healthcare, that's not a lower tier responsibility, but you've got it in your plan because it's important to your residents. So you need to work with your community partners. So a lot of the social issues may be outside of your jurisdiction, strictly speaking, but they're important to the community and for the quality of life in the community.
Okay. And now that you've mentioned that, increase the number of doctors, nurses, practitioners, and other healthcare professionals. I think that we can't do that, but we can certainly support the way Ontario's healthcare system is structured. But we can certainly support the local health teams to help them do that. And we do that.
That's right, because just because we have more doctors doesn't mean we're gonna have a better solution.
Okay. All right, so there's a suggestion on the floor that we take out, or that we add a strategic action, we call it inclusivity. Are we willing to let that be part of the plan?
So if we drop efficiencies and put in increase inclusivity or something and talk about, so what is a desired outcome of increased inclusivity?
Well, we promote inclusivity.
Well, then we've used the word promote twice.
That's okay. Or support,
Support, yeah.
that'll work.
I think there is a big hole in our awareness of the disparities. I agree with Stephanie. There's a huge hole in our awareness. Like people have said to me, well, there's no homelessness in North Frontenac, is there? And I say, well,
It's not just North
it's not,
Frontenac,
it's
things
not
that-
visible, maybe, but it's there.
Definitely is.
Huge economic disparity in my ward. And maybe that's a topic for another day, but John is 100% correct about this.
Is there any value in township being aware of that? What are we gonna do about it?
Okay, but we're not going to do that. Just want to remind everybody too, that ideas that come on the table are ideas only. And if we want to talk and support them, that's great. If we want to turn them down, that's great. Just all of us, including myself, need to be mindful how we do that. Right?
So we're gonna first bullet point, sorry, just repeat that again, what we decided?
Promote a healthy lifestyle.
No, the first strategic action. Sorry.
Well, that one, that was going to be, what did we say? Support inclusivity.
Okay. So I think that's great. I'm sure in 10 minutes, some of us can figure out what a desired outcome can be. It doesn't have to be an action plan. It doesn't have to be a work plan. What would we like to, Stephanie, what would you like to see if we do that in your mind in 4 points, 4 words, 5 words? Knowing that you're not creating the plan to get there, you just want, what's the outcome that you would like to see? Well, everyone's passionate about certain things and you're passionate about this, so I'm not putting you on the spot. I want to hear your idea, that's all.
So what if we said, increase use of the local halls, community halls? That means more people come, different people come. Like I watched Snow Road's community hall group change over the years. Those of us who are a little more mature may not be quite as involved, but this younger group coming up. So there's more people coming in. That's just one.
I think just awareness is enough. Because there's no awareness now.
Sure, that's true, but it can always be improved.
Well, it's not public, it's not discussed, it's not printed anywhere.
What?
The wage disparity, the income disparity, the lifestyle the range of that is not discussed. I'm not aware of it. I don't know where to read about it.
Well, I mean, Statistics Canada,
Yeah, but in North Frontenac specifically.
Statistics Canada, I can give you the exact numbers. There must be a desired outcome that we want from this. So we're aware of this, we're including stuff he's writing, that's good. There must be something.
I like John's comment about awareness, but if it's fine to say we're aware now, but we have to do something about it, right? There has to be some sort of goal.
Well, so I'm going back to, increased availability of amenities and events. Support for a Clarendon Public School. We have to keep this school alive one way or the other, and if we can help do that, those kids may eventually come back and promote this community. We have to do something like maybe we, should we do a job fair, or we do the essential services fair? Is there something that we can do to generate greater interest in local areas?
Without getting into the weeds, but I think this is sort of where, Councilor Region is heading. And, you mentioned it about disparity just in food. Like, do we create, this is not going in here, I'm just thinking it, do we create a breakfast program? For,
Go ahead. So yes, actually, I started one at the store. Starts tomorrow, actually. It's for the high school kids who don't eat before they leave the house. I put a thing out to the community. Would you like to make a donation? And people were showing up all day long on Saturday with food. No pat on the back, no thank you, no questions asked, right? Come get something for breakfast. That's why I thought I was going to be late this morning. Thankfully, the kids knew, so they all showed up early. And they got something and they went to class. But that, I guess that's the point. So there's the awareness of and I like John's use of the word lifestyle too. So the awareness of the income and lifestyle disparity. But what are we going to do about it? And time and time again, what we're going to do about it, it gets done, but it gets done at a very macro level by people you don't even know. And I just think we have to come up with something that, what is our township going to do to help?
Okay, so I'm gonna step in here now. And this is not gonna win me any votes or whatever. I really don't care. We have Rural Frontenac Community Services. We have Land O'Lakes Community Services. We have Ontario Works and other kinds of community services. So they are the primary leaders. We're not structured to actually do this work. So whatever we do, we're going to hopefully maybe do smaller things, but to ensure that the people what we're trying to help get driven to these available support services. So we can do awareness programs or whatever, anything. Vern.
Well, to your point, we do support these organizations financially.
Yep.
And I think in relationship to Stephanie's concerns about food and whatnot, we do make a contribution to aid that.
We do, $2,000.
I'm not saying we don't. I'm just saying that there's a gap here and I'd like to figure it out, but
Okay.
I'm not.
Corey.
I think we could certainly support our community services groups by helping them to, and we have great social media following. We could certainly put their events and their roles and their opportunities on there. We can put their events on our website. We have a website calendar. We could certainly support all of that and kind of partnership with them in that way to help them to make sure that people are aware of the services that they provide. I mean, that's something as a municipality that's not a hard one. That's something we can do and put some effort into for sure.
So the small school here, they get a pizza every Friday, right? Okay. Pardon? Do you have a comment? Okay, so I'm sorry. So they have a pizza day and it's the pizza supplied for all the kids. where my granddaughter goes to school, they pay $4 a week and they get a hot dog and they get a chocolate milk or a white milk. So at some point in time, that kid, if the family can afford it, is going to get half decent meal during the day, at least once a week. We could do things like that. But that would be measures of how we're providing a deliverable. This is the subset. Here's the goal. Here's what we can do, or we can promote, or we can encourage, or we can divert a couple $100 or something or whatever, once or twice a year. Anyway. We're getting ourselves down into things that we could do, and these are all good things. But keep in mind, we're looking at, we're up here, folks. We'll get down here later. Okay. So we've got 3 items now: inclusivity or support inclusivity, provide support for community partners. We could actually divide that into 2: healthcare and seniors and youth services, and promote a healthy lifestyle.
So what's the desired outcome for inclusivity? We haven't agreed with that.
Which we haven't agreed, but it would have
Still
to
working.
be, have to be greater involvement, and the more involvement you get, the more inclusive everybody is. Yeah. That would be the desired outcome. Too bad we
Would
aren't
it,
building
would a
roads.
desired outcome be promotion of a food security service? Not saying how it would ever happen or who would do it? Or is that too specific?
Well, like there, one of our local people gets, or a number get Meals on Wheels. And they pay for that. But we subsidize 2 community groups now. I don't know what the uptake is. I'm kind of looking to see what the first year's results are going to be from that, if it's worthwhile. But maybe we can expand how they help people and so on. I don't know. But we're good. Tara,
So I think one other thing is just doing more to promote the community to do things. So like having a food drive, those types of things. So then it's not a taxpayer cost, but we have the ability for having that at our community hall or here or whatever. So then the community can help. It's more of like outreach.
so are we comfortable enough? Have we talked this out, Steve?
These aren't the exact words, but I'm wondering about if we add the bullet to support inclusivity, that the desired outcomes should be an increased awareness of income and lifestyle disparity in the township. And similar to what you did with health, let's support the agencies that provide the basic needs of food, shelter, and job opportunities for all. And possibly a third one about promoting the events and activities that support these things, whether they're job fairs, whether they're food drives, what have you.
This is like what the first part of what you said is what I've been writing down.
I know I stole it from you.
Okay, I'm gonna move us into economic prosperity. And there are 2 strategic actions: enhance and support the local economy and prepare for potential development opportunities.
Isn't this where you add the efficiency one? Under strategic actions? You add the third one. Investigate opportunities for efficiencies.
Yep.
That should probably be third, I would think.
The one thing, that's fine. The one thing, when I look through the desired outcomes, I just did some wordsmithing to say it has to be reworded as a deliverable. I did take out the Economic Development Task Force. That is a creature of council. And as long as we want to keep doing our job as a township, whatever, we're gonna need that, but I don't think it should be a particularly like a highlighted bullet point. We're improving that one. We already know what the role of the Economic Development Task Force is. I actually said, I put enhancement of the community improvement plan as opposed to continuing.
Sounds good to me.
You know. And then, then it says, we're down later, it says, create complete connected communities through balanced growth. Okay, just create guidelines and guidelines and policies to do that. It's just wordsmithing.
So what is create complete connected communities through balanced growth?
Yeah, I don't know what that means either.
What is that? I have no idea what that is.
Yeah,
Okay, are you familiar with the concept of a complete community? Okay, that's actually a provincial term now that they're promoting, complete communities where everyone can access all of the things they need, whether it's job opportunities, recreation, housing, whatever, in close proximity.
I would suggest that if we don't know what it means, how are the constituents going to know what it means? So maybe we could
reword that.
yeah, and just remember the desired outcomes, and I don't want to bore you guys with their desired outcomes. So they, when you look at them, they have to be in the past tense, right? So it's a term called future perfect tense. So it has to be increased, not increased. It has to be stabilized, not stable. It has to happen already.
And that was my comment about wordsmithing.
Future perfect tense.
Brad,
Yeah, I was looking at the last page that we were desired incomes, the strategic action for investigate.
which color are you on?
Oh, I'm going to this page.
No,
This
no,
item
we're on
here-
this page.
I know.
Okay,
I know. I'd like to see this comment in this first portion here. So it's the additional cost saving partnerships and or shared services for efficiencies. I would like to see that in this first portion on this section under the
I
economic.
think we already, we agreed on that already.
okay. So we have 3 strategic actions under economic prosperity. We are wordsmithing the desired outcomes. We're going to reword connected communities. So people know, including us, what that really means. Okay. Affordable housing, just for your information, Steve, the new definition is 80% of the value of the surrounding housing. So if you're in $1 million housing community and you can buy a house for 800,000, it's considered affordable. Pardon? That is the province of Ontario's.
And I'm not trying to be difficult here, but I'm confused by that because if you've got a waterfront property and half a kilometer away, you've got a normal house,
Doesn't matter. It's what it is. That's their definition. So, when we talk about affordable, we have to always be aware of the context we're in. Okay, but we're talking about the houses along the waterfront and so on here. It's a whole lot different than some of the houses in Cloyne or in Snow Road or in Plevna or, Fernley or whatever. So. Roy,
Just the last bullet point there. Just listening to Councilor Regent's talk, instead of, this is the wrong word anyway, but instead of encouraging a range of housing options, it should be provided a range of housing options. This is a strategic plan. Are we going to fail at the end? I don't know, but it should say the future outcome would be we provided affordable housing.
except we're not going to pay for it.
I'm just saying. But you're talking about public-private partnerships in there. That's okay.
I'm not sure that is okay. we tried that already and got shot down. With our last attempt to attract a contractor to build seniors housing. It seems to me that's too, it seems to me that's too specific.
On that basis, I like the term encourage,
It's not an outcome.
right?
Encouraged.
Yeah, but
Encouraged
encouraged. What does that mean?
or promoted.
Right. There's nothing wrong with saying provide. And
But what my first thought was, who's paying for it?
I don't know yet. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It's a desired outcome. So our desired outcome is we have a full range of housing in North Frontenac. That's the desired outcome. How we get there, that's not to be asked right now.
Okay, Vern, and then Fred.
Well, like John said, we already made that attempt on more than one occasion, and it didn't work either time, so I don't know, it doesn't make much sense to include it for a third time. Or is the third time a charm? Who knows?
Okay, Fred, you comment on this?
Sorry, I got my. I think we should have the options so that we can look after some of the people that do need help. And need a home. And we haven't been doing it either because of opportunities or costs.
Can we change encourage or change provide to promote the development of a range of housing options to provide affordable housing, including public-private partnerships? Yes, you're right. Okay. We can change it later if we have to,
No, I'm okay with promoted. It is not as long as provided.
because we're not, odds are.
I know it's hard to do that, Mayor. I get it. So promoted, I could live with better than encouraged.
So if a developer comes in the door and wants to build 20 houses somewhere or 20 units somewhere, let's see what we can do together. And so on. It's not like we're gonna go out and build 20 units unless we're gonna sell them again. So anyway, just a thought. Okay. Sustainable core services.
Before we leave,
Sorry,
can I just ask the two fellow members of the EDTF, are they happy with leaving out solidification of the role of the EDTF? Are you happy with leaving that out?
So I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
I don't know.
We already have the role of that solidified.
Well, I guess solidified to me means more money. Generally,
well, there is stable funding for our economic development up there, right? Kind of look sideways on that one, so. Steve?
My understanding is that it's in your budget, but it's not in your base budget. It could be taken out, well, anything could be taken out every year. But is it something which is now seen as permanent? In which case you don't need it in the plan?
no, I think funding of the reserve for the EDTF is very much up in the air.
But it needs to be solidified apparently, because if it ever disappeared, then we're completely going against a whole bunch of stuff we put in this strat plan about economic development.
Fred? Vern?
I'm not sure.
Good with
where I
leaving it
stand
out
on
or
this.
See, I haven't. As far as I'm concerned, the Economic Task Force is a creature of council, and council would disband it at their peril. We need this to go ahead. I don't think we need to write it down to say, oh, this says we have to have it, so why would you take it out? It may not exist as an EDTF, it may exist as some other creature, but we need it to move forward. We need some counselors and staff who are, this is their focus, and they become more aware of it, and they make recommendations to council, because council themselves is not in the position to actually do this. Vern?
But we can only do that through this term of council, because the next term of council may have a totally different agenda.
Okay. I voiced my opinion, but if you guys, if the rest of the council thinks it should stay in, it stays in.
Well, I thought the decision was to take it out. That was the last.
That was
thing.
my decision, but now
Okay.
there's some suggestion that should stay in.
And I asked the two fellow members, and I'm not sure I got a response exactly. You think it should stay or it should go?
If taking it out of this plan is as far as it goes, that's one thing. If taking it out of this plan means that something's going to happen in a negative way to our task force, then I completely disagree. Like, we've made some good progress this year on that task force. More so than we have before. There's a lot of interested, smart people who sit on that, including some of our staff that are in this room. And there's no way that I would agree to, if you want to take it out of this, but that's it, that's one thing. So maybe we need to clarify that.
You have an opinion, Roy?
Well, even if we left it in, we said solidified the role of the economic task force. What does that actually mean? The next council, so Vernon's point, could take it out.
Well, it's a basis for arguing. for
Yeah, it's a
what-
basis of argument, so then leave it in.
The task force doesn't cost us a lot of money. It's the events that they suggest and that council accepts, that's where the investment is.
But, okay, so my question again, Ed, what does solidified mean? Does it mean there's a bylaw we're gonna vote on? Like, what does it mean?
And but they're one of the most important committees we have. So when they bring something to council, we really look very carefully at we should be looking very carefully at what the committee or the task force is bringing to us. Council still decides, but it's still very, very serious when they bring something forward.
Then let's just leave it in.
You'd like to see the wording changed a little bit.
Well,
no?
that's going back to my grammar.
So
It has to be.
what, so what can we change it to?
Solidified.
Solidified? Science experiments.
Yeah, because the way it's written right now, it sounds like maybe it's in, maybe it's out, maybe next week we'll take it out.
But
I'm not okay with that.
what, taking it out? Sorry, I was just,
I'd like our Roy to change this a little,
About continued support.
payback.
Continued support for the E EDTF.
yeah, that'll work. Very good. You would agree too? Very good. Okay, all right, sustainable core services. And there are 2 sheets, there are 5 strategic actions. Continue to invest in municipal services, enhance township services, be prepared with shovel-ready projects when funding becomes available, optimize waste management practices, and establish the township as employer of choice. My only issue with all this is, I've got some minor stuff, but shovel-ready projects means you have something on the shelf and you can, within a week or 2 or even less, you can say, if this is ready to go. It's not just pre-planning, it's ready. Great.
So the line of thought really for that, I think, was, yes, being prepared. So having that ready. So whether it be having the pricing ready so that when that grant comes out, maybe quotations from the engineer, stuff like that, the engineering done, ready to go. Then when the grant opportunity comes out, we're good to go with it. We're ready to submit a proper application so that we're successful. So that's kind of the idea behind that whole part.
Okay, and the first bullet point there, I basically said established protocols to ensure regular contact. The sentence is fine. I just wanted to, put it in what is it, past, future perfect. Yeah, establish protocols to ensure regular contact, whatever. So there's some kind of policy somewhere that says we've done this and we check every so often, whatever. I know staff does a great job of identifying grants and so on, Just asking you to take what you do now and formalize it, if you haven't already.
I think the shovel ready thing is an important thing. I know in my past experience, we missed a lot of grant opportunities when we weren't shovel ready. So
I didn't.
so that's important. And just one small thing, it's be prepared for, not be prepared with.
Establish the township as an employer of choice. I'd like to see some kind of educational, I don't know what we have for an educational program now, so that could just be my lack of knowledge. But some sort of educational program for staff, which is our greatest resource. Develop so that everybody gets an opportunity. Maybe this year, maybe 5 years from now, to take a course. Get some kind of training or whatever. We provide it for our firemen because we have to. I assume office staff are aware of what's happening and so on, so they might have an opportunity. I don't know what happens outside this building. Do any of those people want a course? Do they not? Do we offer them the opportunity? And all I'm saying is, if we have a policy that ensures that they are aware of potential courses, then if they're interested, they can make an application and management can say, yeah, we can do this, or no, we can't, but we can do this for you, or it's going to be next year. So then everybody feels inclusive. You like that word?
Yeah.
Cool. Darwin?
Well, just on the roadside, obviously, we have a program for the mandatory training for the certifications and training to use different types of equipment, but we do have an ongoing program. It's through Ontario Good Roads for certified road supervisors. So we have some staff, there's a series of courses and they can get introductory, intermediate, or advanced level. So we have some staff that do those courses and work towards that certification on an ongoing basis. And it takes a number of years, and some are interested and some aren't, but so we have that for that particular certification, the type of program that you're talking about.
So if we did that, you can say, I got 4 staff this year who actually want to do this, and next year it's 6 or whatever. Corey?
Yes, we pretty much have that in place, really, and we have it in place for our office staff as well. There's a lot of AMCTO stuff like that we do and we promote, and they're all aware that they can take it. As a matter of fact, a lot of their role descriptions, we say, we'd like you to take this within 2 years or within 3 years or something like that. What we don't offer maybe is saying to a public works staff coming and saying, I'd like to be the treasurer next year. We don't do that. I mean, we just can't. So I think we see some of that where maybe somebody wants to maybe cross department, but that's really difficult to do. I mean, again, we've had that, or we've had a public works employee come and say, I would like to be a CBO in 5 years. Well, we kind of train people towards what they've signed on to do. So we don't really have things like that in place at this time, because it's pretty hard to do that when you've got, people in those departments who'd like to do that training and then somebody else. So it's just, that's a tough one to go. So we're in pretty good shape that way.
If you want to be an employer of choice, you need to offer internal opportunities to your staff. And you have to offer educational opportunities to your staff. So you send staff to conferences, they go to special courses and so on. But is that available to everybody? You can say, we have a clerk who wants to go to a conference. Well, it really isn't appropriate, but we can do this for you instead. Or what about this? Or if you want to become a CBO, you need these courses. Can we help you do the educational program? It's just about, a lot of it's optics, but people look for that in this day and age. I would ever want to see someone, I really don't want to hear people saying, well, I can't get ahead because. I mean, there are reasons you can't get ahead because, but you have to do a lot of work to get ahead. I just think it would be really nice to have in here, but once again, I'm 1 and 7. So, John?
My awareness, I could be wrong, but it is that the township is already an employer of choice. Clean, high paying, secure. What else could you ask for? It's already there.
It is. I was just thinking of one of the points that it was the business group. Talked about being, having the township being an employee of choice. I don't know, it's employer of choice, yep, yeah. Exactly.
I don't recall that being in there. I
Right,
know
it
it came
was.
up at the planning session.
Okay, maybe that's what it was. But one of the individuals or one of the groups mentioned that. So, go ahead.
Just curious, Corey, have we ever applied for, the province has programs for employee of choice, you actually get recognized, and it would be for small municipalities staffing under 100 or staffing under 50.
Not that I'm aware of.
Because it's nice, I think, and I want to go back to my
Yeah.
past, but York Region would market that like crazy, right? They would put that employee of choice for 2023 right on their front logo, right? But I'm sure there's for small municipalities.
Seen that, but I can certainly keep my eye open for stuff like that. But we haven't, we've kind of been looking at some kind of cool things that are, when we get to budget time and stuff, we kind of got some, I mean, there's like a competition for public works employees out there right now, where where do they go, Darwin? They go to,
They change the location each year, but we're in what's considered District 8. So there's the rodeo for truck drivers, and as far as I know, we haven't participated in that, but we certainly have some people that could and promote. Well, one, show off our talents that we have and promote the municipality.
So maybe just we could put down, just to follow the mayor's point, because I agree that training is so important, increase training opportunities. And just leave it at that, and then you decide what the measurable is after. Can we agree with that?
I live with it. Do we
It's
wanna
good for
add
staff.
for staff? monitoring?
Sure.
I just want to make it really clear that nobody on this council is saying you're not doing a good job. We all think you're doing a great job. We're just saying, we think that you put this down, it's there, it helps with the promotion, it helps hire people and so on, because you do all this. You're not going to give anybody a triple raise or whatever else and so on. So what can you do for them? Well, we can do this for you. You know? Okay. All right, is there anything else with these 5 items? Under enhanced township services, and this kind of goes to Corey and probably Kelly and maybe even Tara. Modernize access to services and consider new technology and demonstrated demand for extended services. Is that what I say? Yeah, the second action. Is there anything we have to worry about these technologies being user friendly? Do we have issues with the interface between us and people accessing whatever we're doing? Correct.
so typically, like we just put in recently our building, so people can now apply for all their building permits online. However, they can also still do it the old way as well. So for those who maybe don't have the internet or don't want to do it that way, they just want to stick with so we kind of leave those opportunities in place. We don't just kind of put one in place and then take away the old way to do it. We kind of leave it so they have options to do it so that's kind of the way we've been approaching this. So yeah, while it may not be suitable for everybody, a majority of the people are kind of loving it that want to do it. Then there's still some that would rather come in and talk to Don and get an application and do it that way. So we've left them in place. And then as we kind of move on, we start to see less and less people doing it the old way and moving into the new way. So it's we've seen that, I think, on a few occasions, right? So that's kind of how we approach that.
John?
What's the issue with governance of community halls?
That's my question too.
Is
I struck-
review the governance and use of community halls. Do we need to enhance that township service in some particular way?
Corey?
I don't think it's so much the governance. I think we want to look at different ways of the bookings taking place, for example, where it would be like an electronic booking kind of thing, and maybe not the committees doing it, right? I think that's kind of what we're talking about there, Brooke. It's some of that minor stuff. It's not necessarily I don't think it's necessarily the governance. I mean, I think we're all set up with that, but unless you have other thoughts there, Brooke. But
I think it just had came up and yeah, and definitely one is like modernizing our processes and how we do things at the hall, looking at some of our current rental spaces in our halls. That, I mean, those are just some examples of what it could mean. I'm not sure if governance is maybe the right word. It's not.
I think for sure the booking process, electronic booking process would work a lot better. So can we look at rewording that then? Okay. The under continue to invest in municipal infrastructure, continue to support asset management planning through studies and funding. And this, I'd like to see that kind of, if it isn't already, and I'll defer to you, Corey, like asset management planning or asset management approach embedded in township operations. I know we're doing it, but how far in are we going?
so could I defer that one to our treasurer to answer that for you? I think we
Sure.
could give you a pretty complete answer.
So the province has set out a lot of mandatory steps as far as asset management and asset management planning and ensuring that we are using it as an operational document. It affects a lot of our funding. Do we not have the asset management plan in place? So we are, it is embedded in our processes, and I don't think the province will let us otherwise.
One more, energy efficiency. There's nothing in this whole plan about, well, I guess I'll wait for environmental. Okay, John,
One thing that's missing in this first strategic action is growth of or development of or new assets. Like, for example, suppose we decided to put in a bicycle repair station. We've talked about that here. Suppose we decided to put in electric car chargers. Suppose we just decided to build sidewalks in Plevna. All these old ideas that's new infrastructure. Are we going to think about that at all? Because there's nothing in here about that.
there's nothing about electrification either. Great.
So when you go down here to enhance township services, it says modernize access to services and consider new technologies and demonstrated demand for extended services. So I think that's where we were kind of thinking that fit in.
Enough.
You're not worried about electrification?
Not worry about it. It's coming. Whether you like it or I like it or not, it's coming.
I know. But it's, you know. Okay. It's just, there's nothing mentioned about it anywhere in here. That was just, and honestly, to your credit, this has changed in the last 3 months. So. Dates and everything else they had to work with. Okay, folks, any other comments about sustainable core services?
Did you want us to change the wording with the review the governance and use of community halls? Did you want that changed to something?
I think we looked at getting governance, the word governance removed from there.
So just have review the use of community halls, or?
Well,
Specific, you were talking specifically about booking, modernizing booking. Is that all? I mean, do all
Well-
halls have community groups running them yet?
yeah.
Yes.
Also, I
Yeah.
thought Harlow was missing one for a while. Or
No, they
Lebanon
have
was
a-
missing one for a while.
They have a committee now too. They've put one together in place. They all have them now.
I think all we can do is make it easy for community groups to use them and as cheap as possible.
Okay, suppose we change the wording to improve governance and use of community halls. Improved. How do you do that? You lose some sleep over that, like, probably not. Because my first thought was exactly what you said, what's wrong with the community halls?
Yeah, the word review kind of implies that, hey, we got a problem. And I don't think we do.
No. Come back and want money. Okay. Corey,
Tara just pointed out too, so up above that says continue compliance with year road maintenance standards. I don't, I'm not really sure with the question mark what that means, maybe.
Year round.
That was year round.
so one of the outcomes there is, and I didn't know this, I should have known, I didn't know this until I read the roads report, which is coming up next council meeting. Every road gets a rating. And you very well could say 65 or 70% of our roads meet this rating or above. And you can set that as a series of standards. They could be deliverables as well. So, you know, having it, this is a little more general, which is a little easier to take. But, you know, and that's maybe how you would measure this, I guess. That report,
Eventually,
eh?
well, eventually that's where you'll end up, is you'll set a level of service target that I want all of our paved roads at 65% or better, or whatever the target is. And then my job will be go back, look at the budgets and the treatments, and come back to reach your target of 65%, I need X dollars. So that's, there's all kinds of fancy software and programs out there that, for pavements in particular, that will do that. You input all your condition data and deficiencies and your targets and the result of inspection programs, and then crank all that out. So we're not there, but that's like the second or third step towards pavement management.
Fred?
Yes, regarding the roads, is there room for improvement, like expanding the services at all?
It's only limited by the budget. There's lots of opportunity to do more or things differently.
When you read the agenda item for Friday's meeting, it shows it's based on 700,000 a year. That's what you based it on. So.
You mean the
There
Ardent Road
need
will
to be
never
a
be
pre-
4-lane?
No.
It's just that money has to be increased, and that's what we're looking at, if we're going to get that kind of improvement.
Steve?
I confess that the reason we have in continued compliance with year-round road maintenance standards is it came up and it was a major point at a planning session. But it appears quite operational, and you really shouldn't be putting in your plan that you're going to comply with the standards. And I'm wondering about just deleting that first bullet and the second one, covering it with enhancement of township roads, parking and boat launches.
Anybody object? Okay, it's done.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. On to environmental stewardship. Can we take a break till 11:45 on this?
Just before we go, can I ask just Steve to clarify? On this topic, you heard about this from other groups, not just the lake people. You heard it from the business group, did I hear you say? The hard-nosed business people?
About roads?
Oh, about environmental stewardship.
Oh, yes, I heard of it. It was the common theme through all of the discussions, all of the meetings.
Interesting.
That's good. see the right things, shouldn't they? Welcome back, everyone. We left off with sustainable core services. Now we're working on environmental stewardship. So there are two strategic actions given. Comments, please. John?
First one looks pretty bold. To me, it surprised me that it's there. I think it's great. Where did this come from? The community?
There was a consensus with practically all of the public input. It came up in the online survey and comments, it came up with the focus groups, came up in the public meetings.
Good. Corey?
I think this mostly came out of the lake association's information though, like their submission to you. I think that's where the idea came from, was from the lake. The others agreed, but I think the idea actually came from the lake associations, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Corey. Like, I think outside of the lake associations, there was a strong desire to see growth. But it has to be managed growth, controlled growth. And they would say we want to see growth, but we want to see two things. We want to retain our rural character. We like the rural character that we have, and we ought to protect the environment.
Right.
So if you guys as council decide that you want to see this type of committee, we as staff really see that as being important as doing it similar to a task force, like you would do with the Economic Development Task Force, with the staff there taking notes and the recommendations coming to count, not just a bunch of people sitting down and coming up with a bunch of ideas. It just doesn't work. So if you guys are going to go this route, we'll be recommending that you do it as a task force, and it does be done officially. So once we get there. So.
Can you estimate the cost, the annual cost of a task force, Corey?
I would say it would be similar to the Economic Development Task Force, really. I mean, you'll have to give your members some mileage, and some submit, some don't, I'd say fairly similar to what your Economic Development Task Force, and whoever is appointed chair, how many people you're recommending beyond the stuff like that. So I think it would be very similar to the Economic Development Task Force, and it might be ongoing for quite some time, or similar to the EDTF, new group every 4 years, however you just do it. But I think it needs to be done properly with proper notes and the whole 9 yards.
Well, the biggest cost seems to me would be staff allocation. The EDTF also has the additional burden of project funding, which this might not. But there'd be a substantial staff, 1 or 2 people, hopefully not hiring anybody new.
So when I looked at this, I thought it was ambitious, but probably a good idea. We don't have a monopoly on climate change issues. Past experiences that it was mostly around energy, which was the start of looking at where we are today, and it was not at any cost, but at a reasonable cost. So that answers your question, John. But I think it gives us an opportunity to get additional people from the community involved. I would hope, membership will be determined by who applies or whatever, or however that's determined. I just hope it's different people than whom we have on existing committees now. So we get different voices, different opinions. I can live with this. What do you think, Stephanie? Fred? Vern?
Well, as long as we don't impose a huge financial burden on taxpayers, because I mean, when it comes to climate, we're not even a drop in the bucket. So any initiative here is going to be very, very minimal. It won't even be recordable.
Keep in mind that they're going to make recommendations and suggestions to us. And it's up to council and to decide along with staff, can we afford to do some of this? It's like the level 3 charges. If we get those, how would we ever afford $140,000 or $160,000 charger but we may be able to get two for 28 or 30,000 bucks. So, and that speaks to a lot of people getting involved with it. Roy, what are your thoughts?
No, I think this is great. You mentioned about, there's nothing in here about electrification, but you could slip that under develop policies and all that kind of stuff in there. So I don't think you have to have electrification specifically in there, but the policies are there. That's part of it. What do you think?
I think at the budget, there's gonna be a rubber hits the road situation. We want $30,000 to pay for our staff, two staff, part-time, to be on this task force. And we're gonna have to vote on something like that. That's the taxpayer money. Halloween, don't I?
I was gonna say something, but I won't. Okay, so I think we should leave that in for now, and we'll see, when the time comes. Is it worthwhile, it's a great idea. We don't know all the ramifications of it. Let's try it and see what happens. What about the second strategic action? Communicate with the province.
Motherhood.
Agree. Okay,
How much will they even listen to a small municipality to begin with?
it's maintaining the contacts. I think that's what this is.
I don't understand, I don't really understand why this falls under environmental stewardship.
It's under another one, right? Sustainable Core Services. We have that somewhere else.
I can help. Under shovel-ready projects, it talks about staying in touch with the province, so you're aware, you have early notice of potential projects or grants, opportunities coming down the road. The reason this was under environment is the small group that met and dealt with the environment had this listed, and I believe you run that small group at the planning session.
I mean, it looks good. And it's something we should be doing, and whether it shows up elsewhere or not. I basically rewrote it to say develop policy or policy develop to promote follow-up with contacts throughout the year. It just formalizes whatever staff are doing now if they haven't already done it.
One thing that's missing here that I've been thinking about, talking with Joe Gallivan for years about, is redefining the issue of lake capacity. I mean, currently, lake capacity is measured by a reactive and after the fact measurement of phosphorus, but there are whole other ways you could measure lake capacity, and they would involve a lot of communication with firstly with the county planners. And Joe is a proponent of this kind of an idea. So I think something should be in here. Maybe you could say communicate directly with upper levels and put another bullet in here, work with county planning staff to enhance lake capacity measurements.
But isn't lake capacity owned by the feds?
No, it's owned by our zoning bylaws.
We don't control the water.
We control who can develop around the lake.
Okay, but
We-
so
We do.
we talk about invasive species, Eurasian milfoil and whatever else. We have limited, we guess we can control what the development is, if it isn't already taken up. But the actual use of the water itself, we don't control.
No, but I believe lake capacity is the amount of development on the lake, which we do control.
So I'm talking about a capacity for development measure. that
Around the lake.
Yeah, not,
Okay.
not stuff on the water,
Okay,
development around the lake.
So
use-
here, the point is that they used to measure by phosphorus levels, right?
Yeah.
But now it's based on so many different factors.
okay,
So it needs to be modernized. That's where John is going.
okay, I
Um,
can support that.
So if we could put that in as a bullet somehow,
You're the author.
well, I said put, So the action would be maybe changed to, so that we still only have two, communicate directly with upper levels of government. And keep lines of communication open at all times, and then add a fourth bullet under outcomes that would be, work with county planning staff on enhanced measurements of lake capacity.
Or developed lake
Lake,
capacity.
lake development capacity, yeah.
Because there's two different,
Well, you do talk about lakes being at capacity.
that's
And
it.
and
That's
that
where I was
means,
coming from.
and that means it's at limit for any development. That's what lake, you say a lake is at capacity.
We used to list that, Tara, we used to list that in our zoning bylaw. Right,
The numbers to determine if they're at capacity is actually provided to us from the Ministry of Environment. And it's based on the nutrient levels like phosphorus. And they determine, and then there's ones that are at capacity and then ones that are at capacity for lake trout. So we have like Mississauga that doesn't have lake trout, that capacity. And then moderate, where they're coming towards that number. But I think what you're talking about is different, right? It's about how we develop out from the lake, and we generally just say within the 300 meters of the water, there's an impact. So it's not directly the people on the lake necessarily, but that area around and how that development is made.
No, I'm talking specifically about waterfront development. So for example, you would say that here's a lake, it has this area, it has this depth, it has this water volume, it has this fish habitat. And it currently has this phosphorus level. But based on all those numbers, you should not allow more than 75 households on that lake, or 275. So
go ahead, Fred.
Who's testing the water for the phosphorus levels? Is it
I think
Mississippi
MVCA
Valley,
did,
or
I
is
think
it-
volunteers and MVCA in the past.
And now MVCA isn't allowed to do that, right?
So I'm not sure who's doing it.
Like, we know the phosphorus levels outside of Bon Echo on the Mazenot are higher. They're still not critical, but they're higher. So it's a factor of development.
is the phosphorus coming from man-made sources?
If-
Or are they, I mean,
Good
sometimes
question.
phosphorus levels go up and down in a lake naturally too.
But they're right there, and that's because they think it's because of the park. That's the conclusion that's being drawn. But we don't really know.
But that's the old thinking, right? That capacity should only be based on phosphorus levels. It's so much more now.
Right. On the other hand, though, we have to promote sustainable development. So you want to build, somebody wants to build a 10 or 20 unit subdivision. We've got everything in place to do that now. We know that there are new technologies and so on. But there's nothing in here for that really. And I don't know how that relates to at capacity lakes. Because that capacity lake does have definition. If you want to build on an at capacity lake, it's got to go to, you can correct me here, the Committee of Adjustment. And when I was on it, there was one or two we looked at, and we looked at the impact and what type of impact it was. And yeah, I think we allowed one or two of them, but they were small. So
A subdivision was approved by the county, not by the township.
doesn't it come here at the end of the day?
No, it's approved by the county, but they do look to the township for recommendation.
Now's your chance, folks. And then we'll open it up to the public.
I think it's imperfect, but it's great.
Okay, last thing, how will we implement this plan? Does anybody like this? Not like it? Roy?
The only suggestion I would put in, there's no real timeline. When they talk about senior staff presenting to council, probably should be done at budget time, right? For any operational plans. That's what we do.
Annually,
Yeah, but at budget time, at the same time.
annual operational plans. Okay,
Yeah. Otherwise, how are we gonna?
okay. All right. So there ends our first crack at draft one. Well, except for the public yet. Right.
So what kind of timelines would you like to see then for, so Steve will take this back. I'm assuming you'll make all the changes that were recommended today. And then we'll have another kick at it. What kind of timelines are you wanting to see? Because are we dependent on this to help with our budget stuff, Kelly, or some of it? We're kind of hoping that we'll work with that, or not too bad, or are we all in pretty good shape, or?
I think we were hoping to use the strategic plan for the budget process. I think we have some pieces or the kind of key elements that we're gonna have to build on maybe.
Well, we're sitting with a February 6th budget meeting.
Yeah.
So, we should do it before then. What kind of timeline do you need to turn this around, Steve?
Probably at least a week,
So if we gave you 2 weeks,
and that would be plenty. That would give us time to get it back to you for you to take a look at it again before we meet.
Corey, can you work with Steve to set that up for us? And then let us know.
1 second.
Oh, yeah, we're at Roma.
My assumption is that when Steve rewrites this, it'll be, yeah, we'll just rubber stamp it. I don't see any, it's just mostly structural and grammatic.
Well, once we see draft 2, then maybe we can make that decision at the time. What do you think, Corey?
We put it on our regular council agenda meeting for February 2nd.
Won't be here. But that's fine.
I'm not. I'd like to see how much changes in this. I guess we can put it on, we can always delete it. Or defer it.
When is the Roma conference? When are you guys leaving?
We are leaving, it starts
20th.
on 20, and it's over, we're back night of the 23rd.
Okay, well, if Steve said he only needed a week, why don't we do it on the 18th? Special meeting. Well, I'm not here on the 2nd, so
Just to clarify, earlier there was talk that council was going to provide Corey with some recommended outcomes. Is that
Yeah.
still happening or
You want
no?
to go back and do that, or are we okay with what we've got now and let the consultant put this together? Pardon me? One of the original suggestions was, especially when we're doing the very first strategic direction, or strategic priority, we thought about sitting down ourselves and submitting stuff and sending it in. Do we want to do that yet?
My feeling is we did that already
Yeah, we
today.
did.
Oh, I
Okay.
think we did that.
Okay,
Steve, you and I can work out that stuff that I was working on and you were thinking the exact same thing. So you know what that is. But
Yeah.
other than that,
I agree. And I think what we can do is we can send you what we think will be a pretty complete draft a week from now. And you can review it. And if you're fairly happy with it, you may just want to include it as part of a regular council meeting. If you think there are some more significant things to discuss, then we'll talk about having another special meeting. That works.
Yep. even if but even if we get to the budget day, we pretty much know what's in the strategic plan. So it's nothing, there's gonna be no surprises by the time we see draft two. So we're good to go. Okay, you have a resolution to read?
So draft 2 for February 2nd then, is that appropriate? If you don't want to do a special meeting?
Yes. And then we'll see what changes are, but right now that should be good. Because we're getting together on the 6th, right, for budget.
So Steve said you could have the draft done in a week. So I could see that, put my comments in, because I won't be here on the 2nd. I can give it to Jerry. If there's any real comments to say. Okay, I'm good with that.
Okay.
So the process would be, we get an email with a revised plan. And we're not allowed to comment to the whole council, so do we each individually comment only to the mayor?
No,
No,
no, it's comment to Corey.
comment to the CAO only. Not to other councils.
We just have to be careful because our process, right? So I mean, our agenda, you guys don't get our agenda until a week before February 2nd. So if we're doing it this way, you're really not gonna have an opportunity to do anything with it until February 2nd. So you won't even get it until a week before, because it'll be under business arising. In a I would assume, Tara, correct me if I'm wrong, or what would you put it under? I'm just trying to think of a way they would have it in time to, we just have to be cautious of our process too.
So I would I would think that you would want to have Steve back again as a presentation on the 2nd to provide your comments on that draft. Like that's kind of where I would, so I think it would end up being a presentation on February 2nd, similar to today, but within that, because it won't be as lengthy as today, just to do that final draft. So that would be my thought with it, rather than business arising, because under business arising, it's difficult to have someone not on staff presenting.
Right.
So if he was to present it on the 2nd, I'm just trying to think, Steve, I don't know that you would need to actually come here to do that. I wonder if you could do it, if you could present it virtually to save you coming, and then you can still get all the I'm just thinking this is the 4th or 5th time now. I'm just trying to think of keeping things within our budget too.
We can just, Mayor,
We don't have to do this now. We have to get it right. Or do our best to get it right. We already know what's going to be in it. There's not going to be any major surprises. So we can go ahead with our operational budget session quite comfortably. If something shows up, well, we'll just cross that bridge when we come to it. But we know what everybody's been thinking. Pardon me? Don't rush it. I'd rather get it right. February 23rd, wrong month. Okay. Well, okay, yeah.
Does February
is-
23rd, Steve, work for you? 9 a.m.
So that budget meeting's all day, right, on the 6th? All right. Okay, so as Tara's done, we'll read it and then we'll open it up to the public.
Moved by Counselor Hurmer, second by Counselor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives for information the presentation from Steve Lickey, Capital Park Consulting Incorporated, and the draft strategic plan for North Frontenac, and thanks him for his time spent today. And the council requests Capital Park Consulting Incorporated to make the changes as discussed today and provide another draft to council for consideration at the February 23rd, 2024 meeting.
Final comments? All in favor? Okay,
I know we're running late.
that's
So
okay.
I'm just looking at Eric over there and we're going through this whole strategic plan. And is there anything here on the firefighters, volunteer firefighters in here? And we don't mention them as core services, but should we be something in there?
I just included them in my thought process as
As
part of
core
the task.
service? Yeah. I don't know. I'm asking a question. Enhanced training for wildfires, cold water rescue. I don't know. No, I don't want to have a discussion here, but it's a key part of our community.
That's why I mentioned earlier, what is core service? It obviously doesn't include fire, but it should.
One of the things well, it's not mentioned, but when I was talking about staff training and so on. Our firefighters, but they're always training and they're always up to date and whatever they have to be.
Training's very expensive. And if this winter continues like this, and there's a lack of snowfall and lack of rain, it's gonna be hotter sooner. And the trouble we had last year is gonna be even worse this coming summer. And the cost of training and bunker gear and all the rest of it for the team, it's expensive. To Roy's point.
And just the fact that, it's hard to get volunteer firefighters. It's, should we be discussing this in our strategic plan? I'm just bringing a question out to council. I just noticed there's really nothing in here, and I think it's a key service to this community.
Well, first of all, I want to hear from Vern and then Eric. Or then Fred, then Eric. Did you have your hand up? No, okay.
I have a question for Tara. Tara, on previous councils, was fire not regarded and accepted as one of our core services?
So I would defer to Kelly because I don't do the asset management plan and how services fit in that under core, non-core.
So I think based on this discussion, so asset management plans a little bit different for core. So I think it's council decides whether fire is a core service. Eric may be able to respond a little bit in more detail. I think there's some nuances within the municipal act that there's parts of what we offer as core under the municipal act, but there are pieces that we also offer that are not necessarily core under the municipal act. But again, that's a council decision on what we're offering as core.
Eric.
Mr. Mayor, through you, council has elected to have a fire department, therefore it is a core service under the Fire Prevention Act. And as such, reading the strat plan, I think we've covered off most of the avenues to ensure that the fire department moves forward. Some of it's operational, some of it's budget, and it's already built into the plan when I read it.
Okay. I was just looking at that educational piece we were talking about. Okay, well, let's just leave it the way it is for now, and if we feel really strongly about it, draft 2 becomes 2A. Okay. Okay, everybody in favor of the resolution? Yeah, can you read it again? Sorry.
And council requests Capital Park Consulting to make the changes as discussed today and provide another draft to council for consideration at the February 23rd, 2024 meeting.
In favor? Carried. Okay. This brings us to the session of the public forum. There's no one in the council chambers. Is there anybody online? No, there is not. Item 6, confirmatory bylaw.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Fowler, be it resolved that bylaw 2024-01 being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of council for its special meeting held January 8th, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Adjournment.
Moved by Counselor Regent, seconded by Counselor Ingalls, be it resolved that council adjourns the meeting at 12:17 PM until January 12th, 2024, or at the call of the chair.
Comments? In favor? Carried. So just before we go, I have a meeting tomorrow with the Land O'Lakes Health Team because we were successful in getting an audience with the Minister of Health at Roma. And I want to know as much about the background as I possibly can get. Stephanie will be there. I know it's not but everybody's been asking, so that's just where we're at. So Stephanie and I'll be at the meeting tomorrow. So, see.